The strength of our armed forces does not just rest in the capability of our military hardware. It relies on the skills, dedication, and years of experience gained through training and deployment of the men and women of the Royal Navy, the Army, and the Royal Air Force. We don't just need to recruit enough of them to serve in our battleships, armoured personnel carriers, and aircraft. We need to retain them for long enough to benefit from the experience and training, which in the case of highly skilled personnel will have cost millions. Those brave men and women love their country and the jobs they do to protect us and keep us all free. But they have families who are often massively impacted by the work they do. While service families take enormous pride in the work of their serving family members, it's also the case that military personnel put their families through more separation, relocation, and danger than any other public servant. On top of that, when you add into the mix accommodation that is not always at the standard it should be, disruption to children's education, health services that do not keep up with your frequent moves, and the inability of your spousal partner to keep their job as a result of frequent relocation, there are many service personnel who, although wanting to stay in the armed forces, are not prepared to continue to put their families through these difficulties. So they leave, taking all their experience with them and often leaving major capability gaps as a result. And that's why I was so delighted to be asked by a previous Secretary of State for Defence to write a report on what could be done to improve life for armed forces families. Professor Walker, Dr. Miska and myself published the report Living in Our Shoes last summer with 110 recommendations, and I'm delighted that at the end of last month, the government accepted 86 of them in full, 20 of them in part, while only rejecting 3, with one being for the armed forces charitable sector to respond to. And the report and the government's response are both on gov.uk. Overall, we called for the whole nation to take its responsibilities to the armed forces families more seriously. And we called for the Prime Minister to make the care and well-being of armed forces families a national priority. And I am delighted that the government has accepted that challenge.
In America, the saying that you recruit the person and retain the family has become part of established wisdom, and we need to adopt that attitude here. In recent years, this country's made great strides in looking after veterans better, and we need to make the same improvements for armed forces families. They may at times be invisible, but they are indispensable to the strength of the United Kingdom's armed forces. One of the family members we interviewed said that she wished someone would take the time to live in our shoes. Others said that no one appeared to listen to the concerns of armed forces families. I say to those families today that your voices have been heard, your concerns noted, and solutions proposed to make your lives better. And I'll be following the implementations of the recommendations very carefully over the years to come.